Hello everyone and welcome to my May edition of my 2024 scrap busting book and crochet blanket project. If you're new to my channel, this is where I am taking all of my kind of scrappy yarns, creating a mitered granny square for each book that I read every month. At the end of the year, I'll have a whole bunch of these fun mitered granny squares to work up into a reading blanket for next year. In May, I read 5 books. Some of them I listened to via the audio version, some of them I read a physical book for, and some I read on my Kindle. So without further ado, let's get right into each of these squares, the books that I read, and I'll give you a little review of each. Book number 1 for May is Frome by Edith Wharton. This book I actually read with my daughter for her English class. She had to write an essay on this one. In order to help her, I figured I should probably read the book myself. I read this one on the computer since that's where the school had it available. This is more of a short story, really, and is about a man in New England back when they were still horse and carriages. He lives in the countryside, is married to Zena, who is, I think, older than him and who claims to have many ailments and therefore is crabby and sour to Ethan most of the time. They're both very clearly unhappy, but neither make any choices that change their situation. Because Zena is sick, her cousin Maddie comes to stay with them and help around the house, but she's actually not very helpful, and Ethan often sneaks into the kitchen to clean up so Zena won't realize. There are light romantic undercurrents in this book between Ethan and Maddie, and Ethan dreams of being able to sneak away with her, but in the end can't bring himself to leave Zena. This is actually a really sad, depressing book, and I found myself wanting the characters to make different choices so they can reach their happiness. I do recommend this book overall, though. Goodreads has an overall rating of 3.44, and I'm going a bit higher and give this one a 4 out of 5. The second book I read in May is Smart Women by Judy Blume. I checked out the physical hardcover version of this book from my local library and have spent a number of hours sitting in the warm spring sun reading. Judy Blume is typically known for her children's and young adult books, but she has also written some adult novels as well. Smart Women is a story about 2 women in particular who are divorced and have moved to Boulder, Colorado with their children to start over. This book was written in the early 80s, so there are no cell phones, iPads, streaming platforms, or social media, which to me was really refreshing and brought back some childhood memories for me as well. We follow these women through their ups and downs and many emotions that they deal with as they struggle to be single parents with kids who sometimes don't seem to understand their mothers. We also get a glimpse into the daughters' lives of both of these women and really see how the mother-daughter relationships can be both amazing and difficult. I actually really enjoyed the writing and the characters, even though sometimes you wondered how smart these women really are, although sometimes being smart and being smart in love and relationships are 2 totally different things. I really enjoyed making this square to match the cover of the book, as you'll see in a minute. Goodreads has this at 3.5 stars, and I am giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. The third book for May is With My Little Eye by Joshilyn Jackson. There are a few storylines in this one, but the book mainly focuses on Maribel Mills, who is an actress famous for her appearances in a TV show. She gets recognized everywhere she goes and becomes paranoid when she feels as if someone is watching her. Her paranoia and fear lead her back home to Georgia from LA. She has to face some past relationships and memories in Georgia. Even though the main story is about escaping her stalker, there are some pretty deep sub-storylines as well. I was really hoping for a little bit more detail and development of those sub-storylines to really pull this entire story together. And I also feel like you would have been more invested in the characters if you had gotten to see a little bit more of their sub-stories and those more emotional, not just thriller details in the book. I actually enjoyed the writing, although I wasn't fully satisfied with the ending or the development of those subplots. There's nothing really wrong with the ending. Perhaps I just didn't want the story to end so abruptly. I really think I just wanted to see some of those deeper, more emotional storylines develop. This was a pretty quick read though, since it was more of a thriller than anything else. Goodreads has this one at 3.32 stars, and I do agree with that in general, and I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Book 4, Beach Rental by Greene. This one is more of a modern day fairy tale, and I wasn't really buying the whole premise of this story. It's definitely a romance. It centers around Julie, who has no real family as she spent her childhood moving between foster homes. She works for a catering company, meets Ben, he's rich, he has a beach house on the ocean, and she suddenly finds herself in the midst of all of these different sorts of people. Definitely a fairy tale romance. Goodreads gave this a 4.18, and I am going to go with a 3 on this one. Book 5, the last book that I read in May, Winter Dreams by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think most of us have had to read at least one of his works in school. For me, it was The Great Gatsby, which honestly I loved. Winter Dreams is about a young man in the 1920s who is a caddy for a prestigious golf club. He dreams of one day becoming one of the renowned players, playing against and winning against the men that he currently caddies for. This one is actually pretty sad, just like Ethan Frome, in that he meets the girl of his dreams, only she is sort of a flirt and really doesn't seem to be able to settle down. He knows that that ultimately isn't the type of person he wants in life, and he leaves her and his town behind. Years later, he finds out that this flirty girl of his dreams actually settled down and has children and is loved by her family. He feels a great amount of remorse and sadness that he missed out on something that was right in front of him all along. This is a short story and a fairly quick read. Goodreads has this at 3.76 stars, and I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. And now that I've got all of my May squares done, I can put them with the rest of my squares that I've done so far this year. We're getting quite a wide variety of squares. I'm super excited for this. If you're interested in making some of these mitered squares, I have a mitered granny square tutorial, and I will link that in this video and down below, so check that out if you're interested in making some of these mitered granny squares for yourself. Until next time, everyone, happy reading, happy crocheting. Bye, everyone.